We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered to us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in the slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased.
Even the biggest companies on earth
Yeah.
started with like niche,
Right.
Like Amazon sold books, and to a degree, you might say that's very broad, but now if you compare that to what they do now,
Right.
it is extremely niche. You just said niches a second ago, and now all of a sudden you're saying riches is in the niches.
I'm agnostic.
So no. Let's get to the bottom of this right now. Are we talking about niches or niches?
Welcome to the BrandNerd Podcast. I'm Mitch Metter. Join me as we nerd out over great brands, study the latest business tech, and learn proven strategies from experts and entrepreneurs. Let's get started.
What is up, nerds? We're back at it. This is season 0 of the BrandNerd Podcast. And I just want to start by saying thank you for listening to this. We're having a blast doing it, and it's awesome to see the numbers keep ticking up. I'm really liking it. Today we're talking about 5 ways to position your brand to scale, and I think this is really cool topic because it's one that I've spent a lot of time thinking as my business grows. And I know that this applies to local service companies as well. And the inspiration from this video actually came from an Alex Hormozi video. Alex Hormozi is a, billion. I don't know if he's a billionaire. He's an aspirations to be a billionaire. He's 100 millionaire. And he's got, some really cool content, and started as a gym owner, and now he just like acquires other companies and grows the crap out of them. So, these 5 points came from his video. They're not groundbreaking, but we want to take a brand strategy perspective to these and talk about how you actually position a brand to get to scale and follow these same 5 things. And as I was thinking about this, the thing that popped into my mind was this verse from Corinthians. When I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child, but when I grew up, I put away childish things. In the same way, your business, your brand needs to grow up too. So many people are stuck in a childlike mentality around their business. They're stuck in the treadmill of making money, and they're doing good at making money, but they're on a treadmill. In other words, if they get off, it stops. What you need to do is build a business that scales, a business that makes money, not just you making money, but a business that makes money. Get off the treadmill. Another quote in this universe, this Christian universe, there's a theologian by the name of C.S. Lewis, probably most famous for the Chronicles of Narnia, which have been made into like major motion pictures and stuff like that. But he has this amazing quote that I love. And it says, "It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered to us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in the slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased." We're too easily pleased. We are so pleased with the success of our business. But what we don't realize is like a child making mud pies in the mud. And I've got some toddlers, so I totally relate to this. They love playing in the mud, but we're offered a holiday by the sea. And it's not till we get to the sea that we realize what that is. So in the same way that your business is stuck in childlike mode, we want to take you to a holiday by the sea. And I'm in this right now, and I don't want to over spiritualize this. This verse, this quote is meant for your spiritual journey, but I believe that these are truth and that this applies to your business as well. So, Pete,
Wow,
what's going on?
Wow, I'm gonna leave. That was the world's best opening monologue. Man, it's so good because you're right, it applies to your brand and your business, and part of your spirituality is succeeding and or thriving in the areas that you're wired, right? So everybody who we're speaking to is wired to some degree as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, right? Something inside of you was stirring and you couldn't quite fit into the 9-to-5 mold. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you didn't quite fit in there and you were like, man, I just want to do something else, something more, something different. And so then you stepped into that. And I believe there were things in that were spiritual. It wasn't just solely just you making a decision. So I think it is applicable to your point. So you mentioned 5 ways, just to reiterate the title and kind of what we're talking about, is 5 ways to position your brand to scale. I think position is an interesting word. I think position is a word that sometimes people know and sometimes people don't know. I worked at an agency, and I remember times where, we sold brand positioning, and I remember specifically people having questions, really very affluent is the right word, like smart, like well-spoken, affluent people. They didn't always know what even brand positioning was. So in your mind, how do you articulate like brand or just positioning? Let's just say, how do you describe positioning?
It's where does your brand fit in the marketplace? Okay. So in the same way that if you play a sport, you have a position, if you're the wide receiver on a football team, your job is to run great routes, catch the ball, and move the chains, right? Wow. In the same way that the running back's job is to be handed the ball and, burst through the line, try to get to the second level and move the chains. But if you're the center, you're making pre-snap calls. Everybody has a different job.
You just unlocked something for me. Because you saying, like, the first thing you said was it's how your brand fits in the marketplace. That was the same language we would use at the agency, right? That's agency language. And then you pivoted and you said, it's like football. It's like there's a wide receiver, and the wide receiver's job is to do X. Is like, right? Like that actually made it more tangible for me. Like I actually understand brand positioning more because it's like if you're a wide receiver trying to be a center, trying to be a running back,
that's where I was going.
You're gonna fail, right? But like you can do what you do really, really well. So
exactly. So when you get to this point in your business where you've kind of got through the struggle, you've got some customers under your belt, you've got a little bit of awareness of your company, that's when it's time to scale, right? You might even be successful. You might be full on doing a great job at running your business, and you're just like, but we've kind of hit the wall or the plateau is probably a better word. Like we've just kind of plateaued. We don't know where to go next. And so these are 5 ways to actually scale your brand. And we're looking at it through the lens of positioning. And there's a great book. Chuck Blakeman wrote it called Making Money is Killing Your Business. This book just sits on my desk. I've got a bunch of books on the bookshelf behind my desk to make a really good Zoom background. I'll be honest. That's why they're there.
It's relatable.
But this book sits on my desk most of the time because I reference it all the time in my own business and because we're here now. And I don't want to get too far away from the topic, but I just think this is so important to talk about in setting the stage for what we're about to talk about. So he actually has the 7 stages of business ownership. I'm going to run through them really quick. There's concept and startup. That's pretty... you have the idea essentially. Then there's survival. You're executing on the idea, but you just got to grind. You got to survive. Then there's substance. Like some breakthrough has happened and you're starting to actually be able to work your craft. Then you get to stability where it's like, I'm making enough money now where things are stable. Maybe I can hire somebody, and honestly, when you hire somebody, you kind of go back a little bit. You get back. I know that from reality. You take a step back, but that's the way it's supposed to be. It's now I got to figure out how to do this with somebody else. After stability is success. And this is where, you are through the struggle. You're now like, okay, there's actually a little bit of extra here. And that's when process comes into play and optimizing your business. And then the next one, and that's where a lot of businesses stop. Frankly, like stability and success, that's the really easy spot to just live there forever. But the next step, Chuck calls significance. And this is where you are the leader. You are no longer working in the business. You are now working on the business. Right. You are not critical to the execution. You are now a leader. Right. And then he's got a 7th step, which is succession. you know, and that's mentorship. And how do you pass off the business to the next generation, or how do you get it ready to sell, you know, those types of things. So to step back to the stability and success, that's where I want to focus, because that's where businesses probably are with this. And I think the best way to do this is to actually take an example as we go through these 5 things. And the example that I thought of, I just created an avatar, a character, if you will. And
James Cameron's avatar?
Yes, I created a blue cat person, and they live in the jungle, but they also can live in the water. And spoiler alert, I think they've got fire ones too.
All of their movies have an underlying like cultural issue, right? So this last one was like
whaling, I think.
Climate change,
and whaling. Yeah.
And
well, the first one was definitely, it was like
gentrification and like
right.
What is it, like taking over people's land and that whole
exactly. Yeah, it was like
I don't know what that word
story is. Of settling North America, North and South America. Yeah,
you notice this, but the first Avatar is the same plot line as Pocahontas.
Yes,
like literally, if you go and there's like even the character, everything matches. There's like Pocahontas, and then there's the girl. Yes.
There's also Dances with Wolves. Have you ever seen that one? Yeah. It's like the same exact
Dances with Wolves is his name in that movie. Like that's what the Indians call him.
Yeah.
I am Dances with Wolves.
Right.
Beautiful. So
so the example I came up with is we're going to call this guy Bob, because Bob is a builder, and I couldn't think of a better name than Bob.
What about Manny? They changed it, man.
True.
It's a Handy Manny. Man, Handy Manny. He's like Mexican or something.
No, my kids watch Handy Manny all the time.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's good. The good diversity.
Yeah. No, they actually prefer Handy Manny over Bob the Builder. So
I haven't seen. I remember Bob.
I'm raising good kids.
Yeah. Well-rounded.
Yeah. Bob is a 30-year-old business owner, and he's been doing this a couple years. He focuses on residential construction and takes on various interior remodeling type projects, so that's kind of where his specialty is, but he's still pretty general, and he's built up a nice customer base. Maybe he's listed his services on Facebook Marketplace, or, I'm kind of thinking of this modern version of an entrepreneur. And so Bob now wants to scale his company, and he comes to a brand strategist and goes, "Hey, I'm trying to scale my company. I've got a couple different ideas, but let's run through the different ways we can scale." So this is our brand strategy session with Bob, if you will.
Nice.
And number one, the first way to position your brand to scale is to go up market. So this is essentially going, okay, I want to work on higher end houses. I want to work on projects that are more in that kind of premium luxury space, and so here's some pros. Quality customers, right? They've got a budget to work with, which is huge, right? Potentially better loyalty, but even more importantly, better referrals, because their friends probably also have budgets and better, you can just imagine like, somebody having a job done in their house, they invite their friends over to see the new kitchen or whatever, and they're like, "Now who did this?" And they're like, "You gotta call Bob."
Yeah. I like big budgets and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. When a client walks in, right.
Yeah. I got nothing to add to that.
We like big budgets and we cannot lie.
Yeah. So there's also cons to this approach. It's a smaller pool of customers.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, probably pickier. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
I noticed that there's a little bit of a gap between the countertops and
yeah.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
So you have to up your game in that regard too. You have to go in with the expectation of you're going to chase kind of the more quality people. Well, you also have to make sure that you're, I
feel really bad for my friends named Karen, but to use the cultural lexicon, the cultural nomenclature, you might run into some Karens.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the key to scaling up is delivery and your process. So being able to deliver really good service, and show that you have a process, like cleaning up after yourself. These are the things that are gonna that are going to be important, and getting that first customer. Like when you're going from generalist and specializing in a little bit more up market, you got to get that first customer, first customers really, and then you can start to build out your portfolio and build out the trust in that marketplace. And so to use our Bob example, I'm calling, as a brand strategist, I'm saying, Bob, we're going to call your company Premier Remodels by Robert.
Ooh, by Bobbert.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. I love that name. It's like all the Premier Remodels by Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just even that, throwing the Premier in there, maybe cleaning up the logo a little bit, all those things will help, communicate quality.
You can take honestly, you can take the by Robert off of there, especially if you're building a company to scale. The reason I kept by Robert in there is just to keep our character
alive,
front and center. Yeah.
I will say though, like for the smaller solopreneur type of businesses or couple man shows, like there's something nice sometimes when I see like by someone.
Oh, for sure.
It like speaks like I feel like I'm gonna meet you. Yeah, I'm gonna meet the owner. And there's something about that you're like, you're not just getting a guy, you're getting like the owner, and there's like a level of that they care more than just because your owner is always gonna care more than an employee. That's just how it works to some degree. So. Let's keep Bob alive. Let's keep it by Robert.
Yeah, certainly early on, and like you can like, what is it, like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse?
Yeah.
Like you can have a name in there. You can have two, in fact. You can have Ruth's and Chris.
Right.
Right. And you can do that. So
going up market is one way, and then the next way is essentially the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Just going down market, like doing the
exactly. Just to stay on up market one more second, there's, from a brand message standpoint, I want to talk about aspirational identity. So aspirational identity is this idea that applies particularly to higher income type customers. This idea of, I aspire to be perceived as higher than I even am.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very real thing. It's real everywhere, but it gets super real at that level. They want to impress their friends.
Right.
They want their friends to come over who are also probably affluent. And they want to have that, like, oh wow, they want their friends to be jealous.
Yeah.
Honestly, they want their friends to be jealous.
Yeah.
So that aspirational identity, and then the fear of failure is another aspect that I would focus on with messaging just a little bit. We've talked about failure in the past, and it's salt in the recipe. You don't want to go too far down the failure, but the reality is there has to be a cost of not doing business with you.
Right.
If you're going to hire Joe Schmo Builder, you might want to consider some of the problems you could run into with them versus hiring Premier Remodels by Robert. You're not gonna have to worry about that because this is our industry.
Right.
This is our niche.
I love that aspirational identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking about that in a post that I did about just how you view yourself, like self-perception.
Yeah.
The wrong self-perception can lead to deception, and these people are, as you build wealth and stuff, I think you're right that in general, you just care about optics and stuff more. And so that's super interesting that's a great marketing tool. That's a gem.
Yeah.
Like playing to that instead of just letting it be, just play to the fact that they do want to show off a little bit and that they have the money to do. And that's okay. Like when you build wealth, you can do those things.
Yeah.
And people who don't have that can't. And that's just the reality of life.
There's unhealthy people in every population.
Right.
So somebody who's wealthy and unhealthy from an emotional intelligence perspective, they're lacking gratitude for where they are in life, and they take that out on others. That's just the reality. Hopefully you only work with customers who are super grateful and understand that, there's a certain amount of like luck and knowledge and everything that goes into the spot that they're in, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, no, it's true. Love it.
We can take this the complete opposite direction. We can take the customer. We can take your your company and go down market. And here's the thing that is really positive about going down market. There's a lot more customers there. There is a lot more people in a less affluent, think like middle class, lower middle class, just to use like the common categories. There's more customers, and that's the main, honestly, that's the main attraction to this. Now, you're going to get higher churn, as in you're not going to have as many repeat customers, because, it's harder to deliver the same value. You get what you pay for. And you're also going to have more like tire kickers, people who call up and they want to see what it costs, but then they turn away. So the key to going down market is actually sales and marketing. You've got to invest in sales. You've got to invest in getting a job closed. And that's why you see like door-to-door sales, window salesmen, or roofing or whatever, or storm chaser roofing companies. And they're, I see it all the time. Somebody walking down the street with a clipboard and you're like, oh boy, here it comes. Yeah.
So true. I love the concept though, that where as you look up, there's less, if you go upward, there's less, and if you look downward, there's more. One is not better than the other. They're just strategies to grow and scale. Well, and they both can be effective.
Yeah.
You just have to choose what you want to do.
You need to be real with yourself over what you're better at. Are you better at the craft? Right. Are you better at selling the job?
Right.
Because if you're better at the craft, then by all means, go upstream.
Yeah.
But if your craftsmanship still needs some work, Bob, maybe you're better off going down market and scaling through volume versus scaling through budget size.
Yeah. I mean, and also how cool would it be if someone had a vision of like, hey, we're in the down market right now. This is what we do. But part of our vision is to get by 2027 to have at least 3 clients or customers, a year or a month or something like that that's more in that upward market.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So like you can be in one and aspiring towards the other. You're not locked into anything, but that could even be cool for a business owner to kind of hone in on that.
All right. So, Bob, we're going to call your down market, rebrand. We're going to call it Robert's Reasonable Remodels.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So reasonable. Hey, we're reasonable.
It's accessible, like people, like a word like that, people go like, okay, yeah, like there's a trust factor there.
Yeah.
On like, this person isn't trying to get too big for his britches or whatever. Yeah. He's going to come in and do a good job. And the message for Bob at this level is to really focus on success. And that painting a vision of success for your customer. Yeah. And then I also would say the call to action, like this, because that's sales and marketing 101. You got to have those calls to action. You gotta grab them while they're thinking about it, and you got to convert them. You don't want a long drawn out sales process when you're doing high volume.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if it's a big ticket, that's different. You can have customers on the hook for years even because the payoff is so big. But when your payoff isn't big, you got to get them and close them and move to the next one. Like it's you got to stack jobs.
This is good stuff, man.
Yeah.
This is really good.
I mean,
it's just helpful. And I think even just saying the names in each category gives clarity to what that could be. It gives just this little bit of an example that people can envision.
Right.
This truck driving down the road. And what does it like Rob or, Premier Remodels by Rob look like driving down the road versus Rob's Reasonable,
So think about like from a logo perspective, there are distinct things you can do from a visual identity standpoint, which is the logos, the colors, the shapes, the quality of design. Yeah. What are some of the things that, like, let's just say a luxury brand versus an everyday brand? Yeah. Like what are some of the things that that differentiate those two?
The two things that come to my mind really quickly are color palette and type choice. You know, like I'm envisioning Premier remodels by Robert in like a wider, more tracked out, like spread out font, you know, and the color palette to be more muted.
Yeah.
Perhaps like a muted gold or something, but then, and black, or just very minimal colors, right? Like, but then reasonable remodels, you can add in, I'm envisioning a more simple typeface and perhaps like a little script font that says like, you know, reasonable. And it's like, there's like a star that has like the starting at price, you know, like I'm thinking about a vehicle for some reason. And, you know, like us on Facebook and blah, 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 all these types of things. Whereas like the Premier probably would just have the logo, probably just have like the website, you know, it's not like they're a little bit, not high note, like nose in the air type of people, but like, you want to come across, again, perception matters. So your trucks, you're not driving a rinky dink van, you're driving a 2023 Ford, right? And you have your logos on the side of the door. And when you get out, you're clean cut, you know, like, versus reasonable, where it's like you're just kind of expecting a hardworking blue collar type of guy. That's the other thing to consider too with this stuff. It's like, depending on the size of your business and where you're at in your business, you do represent your brand as the business owner, you know, and you know that, you know this to be true. Like your glasses, we've talked about this before, but your glasses are part of the BrandNerd brand. Yeah. And you are the face of the brand to some degree, as much as you might hate that.
I'm trying to get away from that.
It's
but
true.
That's part of our ways to scale. I mean, at one point I was definitely literally the face. I mean, I was the whole thing. And like you'd get on the website and it'd be my face all over the place. And yeah, the glasses, I do need them, by the way. I just want to clear that up.
They're not blue light.
Well, there's so many people like, so do you need the glasses or like, and I'm like, no,
they're real.
I don't see well without them. Like I'm not one of those people that can't survive without them, but like I can't read stuff at, you know, even short distances if I'm not wearing glasses. So
there's a million ways to take it, but you know, reasonable. I love that word, reasonable. Like, I don't know, that's a really good word to me. Like reasonable seems like I want to buy from you. Like you're a reasonable guy, you know?
Exactly.
I guess that also speaks to where I'm at in life. Like I would be attracted to Robert's reasonable remodels over Premier, because that's just, I'm not in that season of life yet. I'm still in my 20s and figuring life out. So
right. And the thing, I mean, it's alliteration, you know, RRR, Robert's reasonable remodels. That always just, there's a memorability to that, you know, like you remember that a lot better. So yeah. All right. So up market and down market, it's really easy to kind of go, okay, those are obviously those are easy to understand. It's A versus B. We're going up or down. Now we're going to do a different move. We're going to go to an adjacent market.
Slide to the left.
Exactly.
Slide to the right.
So there's a lot of verticals, you know, in the broader remodeling space. You know, we specifically started with Bob as doing interior type remodels. So something we could do is he could, you know, let's say he feels like he's kind of maximized his potential in the interior remodeling space. He doesn't feel like there's a lot more pie left in the, you know, if you look at a market like a pie, he's got a pretty big slice of it, and the effort to build that slice versus to move to another vertical at the same time. The pros to this approach, it's a similar strategy. Like you're not going to have to reinvent the wheel. He's not, you know, to use the pie analogy, he's not an interior remodeler opening a bake shop, right? Like he's moving into just a different type of remodeling and adding that into his services. It's similar value, similar profits. Like you kind of already know like how you work, you know, a lot of your processes will translate. It's actually really awesome because if you already have an established customer base that trusts you, you have loyal customers. When you add a new vertical, they can come with you to that new vertical. So it's a lot easier to get new customers in that way. And you can kind of move one vertical at a time. You can keep adding in these verticals. The cons are it's a little bit slower scale versus taking a more shotgun or taking a more specific approach. And it's kind of that here we go again.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, I'm starting at ground zero with a whole new company, a whole new division of the company. So
Could this be a service though? Does it have to be a new division or whatever? Like, could this be an additional service that is, I mean, you're still needing to have that feeling of here we go again, because you're still needing to build a infrastructure for that service.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like landscapers.
Yeah.
Right. So landscapers might focus on, or even like grass cutting, outdoor like maintenance stuff. Maybe they're not landscapers, but they're taking care of your grass, they're trimming your bushes, edging, all that kind of stuff. But now they're like, hey, we have this on lock. We're good. We're successful at this, but we want to add paving or like laying down pavers and all that kind of, like, you know, actual true landscaping, creating spaces outdoors, and then moving into that.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that would be a
we're
good
saying the same
example of
thing.
like an adjacent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the reason that it's here we go again is you have to learn a new skill set.
Right.
You know, like you can't just take the guy who's been riding a lawnmower and planting grass seed and say, okay, now you're a hardscaper.
Right.
You probably, the best way to do it is probably hire somebody with hardscape experience who can, you know, with some leadership potential that can start to lead that portion of your company. You know, some people maybe you've got the right guys to run your interior remodeling already, and you as the business owner go, I'm going to take on a new task of learning this, and that's definitely here we go again. You know, like I'm going to learn how to do this hardscaping, and then I'm going to build out this new division. And I think there's not really a wrong way to do it. I think, you know, either way can be the path that you choose. The key to this is you have to change your messaging to the new vertical, and you have to find that first customer.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And like this is a common thing that happens is somebody runs into your content or your advertising, or maybe they've even used your services for other things, and they go, hey, do you do XYZ?
Yeah.
You know, hey Bob, you did a great job on our living room remodel. Do you do roofing?
Yeah.
Because we need a new roof too. You know, it's like, you know what? Let me introduce you to Robert's Roofing and Remodels.
Yeah, exactly. Robert's Roofing and Remodel. It just keeps going in, like adding everything.
Alliteration again. So
yeah. No, that's good. And also like being open with like training your people to say at the end of each visit, whatever they're doing, whatever job they're on, training them to be salespeople too, you know?
Yeah.
Even your average, not average, but every employee, you can equip them with language to become salespeople to a degree. And so if they're leaving that job, just saying, hey, thank you so much for having us, allowing us to do the service. Hopefully everything's to your standard and you like everything. Just so you know, here's our card. If you ever need anything, call us. And we also just started doing, you know, roofing as well. So if you ever have or know anyone in that space, we'd love to work with you or with them again. So anyway, thank you so much, and I'll take care.
Perfect.
Like some degree of that.
The only thing I would change with your sales pitch is I wouldn't say we just started roofing. I would say
Yes, we've
actually got a crew of experienced roofers as well.
Thank you, because we just started roofing is a terrible thing to say.
Yeah,
I just started doing logo design. I'm like, it's my first time with Nike on a call. And
I
like,
just learned Illustrator.
Exactly. I just learned Microsoft Paint. So
if you're going into an adjacent market, something you could focus on with your messaging would be to get into the philosophical, like, hey, you already trust us with this, so why not just make it really easy and trust us with this as well?
Yeah,
you already trust us with remodeling, why don't you just bring us right into you know? And that's kind of that philosophical conundrum of like, I've got a great interiors guy, but I would love to have a exteriors guy. And
man,
like,
that is the best feeling when you're working with someone and they just have the thing that you're looking for, and you can keep working with the same person. Like I personally, I love that. I'm just like, yes, thank you. I don't want to go and look for someone else. Like, so,
and then it could become like Robert's whole home remodeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he can take that and run with it, you know, and stack more verticals on top of that. He can do roofing, he can do siding, he can do windows, you know, and now all of a sudden you're doing a whole home remodel, you know.
Right.
And so that's how the adjacent model works. You kind of move one vertical at a time,
Yeah.
and you take over slowly.
Conquer the world.
Yeah, but so it's a slower scale because you're kind of moving one vertical at a time.
Right.
But it's a more precise way of doing things, and you can be seen as a specialist in these different verticals, versus the next one, which is we've gone up, we've gone down, we've gone adjacent. Now we're just going to go broad. I'm just going to say it straight up. This is a tough one from a business. This is actually where I think most people try to start, is they go like, I do all kinds of stuff. I should say, I definitely started that way.
Yeah.
It's like, I can do logos, I can do web design, I can do messaging, I can do, really what I was strong at was more the messaging part of things, but I had learned how to build websites, and I thought, and I helped a lot of companies that had bad websites get great websites.
Yeah.
They might not be the world premiere websites, but they're great. They're fast, they're effective, they're well messaged. And that's how we started. Now I don't develop the websites.
Yeah.
I have really good people that do way better work than I do. And now they are in that world-class premier level. So a broader market is where you have more customers, you have the same customers, but it would be like if Robert went from essentially goes straight from, okay, I do interior remodels to now I do whole home remodeling overnight. You know what I mean? I just do all the things. And the problem with that is that there's less value in terms of like, you aren't a specialist. It's harder for you to deliver really good value. You're probably subbing out a lot of work from like a more business part of it. So there's not as much profit for you because you're paying other companies to come in and do certain things. And you're competing against specialists. Yeah. So if somebody just needs a roof, do they want to call Robert's whole home remodeling?
Right.
Or do they want to call, Randy's roofing? Because they just need a roof. So you're competing against specialists, which is difficult. And much like going down market, the key to this is sales and marketing. And getting case studies and showing that you can do all these different things. You have to have a portfolio of roofing if you want to compete with roofers.
Yeah.
But you still are at a disadvantage to them because people don't think of you when they think of roofing.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting, and I don't know if it's this episode, maybe it's a different episode, but to talk about when businesses should either start new divisions or new companies for these different strategies on how to scale, right? So if for example, if Robert goes up market, and then he's like, okay, I've done that for a while, it's great. Should I transition into going down market, or should I create a new division of our company that's going down market and I keep this up market and now I have both, right? Like, and the same would be for adjacent, the same would be for broad. It would be interesting just to like think through, is there any benefit to separating and just having like, hey, we want to go more broad with everything, but we don't want to take away from what we're already doing. Does it make sense to just start a new division or company? You know what I'm saying? Kind of.
Yeah, for sure I do, because I think there are distinct advantages to both.
Right. It's almost like when someone's debating, like, if I have Pete Design Company, do I have an Instagram account for Pete Design Company, or do I have an Instagram account for Pete Rodriguez? And I show personal stuff, I show my design stuff. It's all under one house. It's like, that's a small, maybe a bad example of the bigger decision that a business owner would make. You keep everything under one house? Do you make a new division, or do you make a new company? Because sometimes there's benefit, like you said, there's benefits to just, hey, we want to go broad. Let's not mess up what we have. Let's just start a new thing. We're still owning it and managing it. And it's similar. It's under our parent company, essentially. And like, we can kind of do whatever we want with that.
And the thing is, I have we have clients that are an example of all these ways. We have clients who are more the umbrella approach, where it's like we've got one company name, but then we've got distinct service categories underneath that. And they even the trucks on the road talk about their distinct service categories. I've got a client who actually has like a HVAC division and a plumbing division, and it's all one company, but they have two different logos. But the logos are very just like similar.
Yeah.
You know, for better or worse, like they're similar. So I've heard people say like, oh, I didn't even realize that's a different logo.
Yeah.
You know, but other people, when they see, if they, you know, for example, it's HVAC and plumbing, if they see the plumbing truck, that's the first logo they've seen of this company.
Correct.
Potentially.
Correct.
And so they associate it with that. So there's definitely an advantage to that way as well.
Yeah.
And then a third approach would be to have completely different company names,
different
for
brands,
each of them that are specific to that, you know. And there's actually a local home service company that, and there are three. They have an electrical, they have a plumbing, and they have a HVAC, and they have three different names, and they're actually franchises. Each they bought franchise names. So one is Benjamin Franklin Plumbing.
Yeah.
One is 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, and it's Sparky.
Yeah,
or something.
Sparky's,
I think
yeah.
Sparky. But it's all under one. Which at one point it was Roar. I think they got bought out. So I don't think it's the Roars anymore. But like you worked with them when you worked at Castle.
Yeah.
So like that's a different way to do it.
Yeah.
Now that's a little
It's a little messy.
because they're franchises.
Right.
So, but still, like they've got three distinct names for each service, but it's all the same thing. So there's not one way to do this, but there is a way that probably fits you better.
Yeah.
And like I think the most ambitious way is three different names.
Yeah.
It's probably the one with the most top end potential. But that floor can be lower as well. Like, because, you know, one division could struggle and you got to find the right leaders. You got to find the right technicians. You got to manage three completely different things.
Yeah. It makes, it can make leading that type of organization harder because you don't have, you can't just do like one piece of even content. I don't know. My mind always goes to content, but like just thinking about creating content for the same company with three different divisions versus three separate brands altogether. Now you're multiplying the stuff you need to do for each individual brand and all the things. So I love what you said about that. There's not a right or wrong way for anyone, but there probably is a best way for an individual and how you operate, how your business operates. You can probably point to one of those and say, this is probably the best way to handle that. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for speaking to that. As it relates to broader market, I think it's helpful.
So yeah, the opposite of broader, much like the opposite of going up is down, the opposite of going broader is to go narrower. And this is the fifth and final ways to scale your brand. And this is essentially picking an even more specific niche than you're already doing. And this is kind of what we did with BrandNerd. We were pretty general and we worked with mostly local companies. Now we do have some others, but we're going to go narrower. We're going to work with local service companies that are established, that have, you know, 100K per month in revenue. And, you know, like we have kind of our guidelines for who our very specific customer is. In the same way, we can go narrower with Bob's company. And the reason this is great is one, riches are in the niches, which...
Oh, so you switched it up. So let's clarify that because you just said niches a second ago. And now all of a sudden you're saying riches is in the niches.
I'm agnostic.
So no. Let's get to the bottom of this right now. Are we talking about niches or niches? Devin, what do you say? Are you a niches guy or are you a niches guy?
I usually say niche.
Oh,
but I don't know. I'm over here.
Riches in niches doesn't rhyme. You could say riches and niches.
Yeah. Okay.
We could say.
So riches are in the niches.
Niches.
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up right now and figure out what's going on.
I think it's both. It's both. Yeah, literally, people have said both forever. Niches get stitches.
I feel like this is a completely made up history of this word. I feel like it's supposed to be niches and it's just got Americanized to niches.
Yeah. Niche feels right. like your niche. But I remember I always grew up saying niches, and then I heard someone say niche, and I was like, I think it's niche, and I stuck with it ever since.
Yeah.
I
say niche, except when I say riches.
Riches is in the niche.
Or when I do my spinoff brand called Mitch's Niches.
Yeah, dang, you should call it Mitch's Niches. And then every time someone says niches,
I could rebrand to Mish.
Yeah, Misha's niche. Wow, that's fantastic. I love, this is our favorite one, the narrower market.
Yeah.
And it's the place where everyone should start.
Yeah.
But it is the hardest place to start. It really is. It is the most tempting to start anywhere else but a niche.
Yeah.
And because as humans, we are wired to say, the more the merrier. The bigger the pool, the better the odds. And we're just wired that way. Like, it doesn't matter what business you are a part of. We're just wired that way. And like the opposite is true. It's always that if you can build a smaller, compact, more dense customer base, foundation, whatever it is, that is actually the formula to build something really, really big. Even the biggest companies on earth started with like niche. Right? Like Amazon sold books.
Yeah.
And to a degree, you might say that's very broad, but now if you compare that to what they do now, it is extremely niche. So, man, let's start there. I'm just preaching to myself. I just need to be more niche.
So like you hit the nail on the head. The pros of this are that the riches are there because you can maximize your price, your profit, and the value that you deliver. The reason that you can charge more is because you're more valuable to somebody when you specialize in exactly what they're looking for. The problem is it's a slow start. If you start as a niche, day one, it's probably going to be crickets. You know what I mean? And it's a slow build. However, going back to the pros, it's hockey stick growth. You ever heard that term before? Like you've seen like like if you hold a hockey stick on it's up and to the right. Like you can see like a slow build and then it's
Nike symbol growth.
Sure.
It is check mark growth.
Yeah. Except it depends which side of the Nike shoe you're looking at.
Exactly.
Actually, I don't know.
If it's flipped, you could be going
I don't
down.
know enough about the Nike logo. I know the typical, the correct placement is up and to the right.
Yeah, it is. I am going through this, and again, I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I'm going through this on social media where I specifically am targeting and trying to reach creative individuals and helping them sell more, right? To sell more as a creative without selling out, right? So many creatives think, man, I just got to be a slave to the grind and the field. But I looked at that and said, man, how can I niche down further? Like not just speaking to creatives. So right now I was doing that, but how can I niche down further? And it's like, well, what are some things that are really important to me? And it's like, well, my faith, I'm a Christian, right? So like, how can I now speak to Christian creatives? Because that takes it in more, right? Because not every creative is a Christian, and that's okay. But I want to speak to encouraging Christian creative entrepreneurs and helping them in biblical entrepreneurship. What does that look like? Whoa, right? Like what does Christ-like entrepreneurship look like? So that's one way for me, just sharing up on a personal note, that I'm trying to niche down and really speak to a specific type of person rather than, so it started as creative and then just Christian creative. And then it's like, what does Christian entrepreneurship really look like from a biblical lens? And like trying to speak to that, to people who are interested in that.
So the key for you is knowing who your customer is. Or your audience in the case of social media.
Content,
And the same goes for when you're going to a narrower market. You have to know who your best customer is. So if you've been broad for a while, if you've been general for a while, general in your approach, you'll take on just about any project or multiple types of projects. You have to do a common factor analysis. What are the commonalities between my best customers? This is how you can start to develop your niche. Go, okay, I work really well with, people who are Christians. So I'm going to start speaking to them, and I can relate to them because I'm a Christian, And in the same way, you know, that's what BrandNerd, we don't specifically call out Christianity, but we call out customers with high values.
Yeah.
That want to make a difference in their community, that want to do marketing in a world that makes a better place. They don't want to do trashy marketing. They don't want to do clickbaity,
scoundrel.
Yeah. Not
stuff,
not the used car salesman stereotype. Like, you know, we want high quality people who are trying to add value to the world.
Yeah, that's good.
And so knowing who your customer is, you can kind of do that analysis and look through. And, you know, let's say Robert realizes that, hey, I'm here in Lancaster County. There's a lot of old homes, and I've done some really awesome old home remodels.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a farmhouse, maybe it's in Lancaster City, like a Victorian era home, or maybe it's, you know, just townhomes, you know, that are just built 100 or more years ago. And so he could decide, you know what, I think that's going to be my niche. Like I understand how to deal with old plumbing, old electrical, how to deal with, you know, the different things that are going on in these older homes, thicker walls, built out of brick versus, you know,
there's plaster, not drywall, right?
Exactly.
Like all those things.
Yeah. Plaster versus drywall and all these, you know, older construction techniques. So we could do rustic remodels by Robert.
Dang, that's
You know?
the flames right there. Dude.
Yeah.
That's so good, man.
Yeah. So instead, you know, premier remodels by Robert was one thing that we talked about, just in general, nice homes, you know, but let's say, you know, farmhouses are nice homes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and there's some people that have done some amazing farmhouse remodels and made them, you know,
Gorgeous.
you know, frankly, I would live in those homes over Bent Creek or something any day.
Yeah.
You know, like that's, you know, Bent Creek is a local high-end
neighborhood,
kind of the high-end neighborhood in Lancaster County.
What's interesting is that you just mentioned go up market versus the narrower market, and there's a lot of similarities between those two, the up market and the narrow market, because they're both sort of premium, right? Because whenever you're narrowing in on something, you're unknowingly or knowingly positioning yourself as an expert in that thing, right? So you are now an expert, which sort of makes you premium. It sort of says, I'm the guy, right? And if you're going to do this, there's a cost. It's going to come at a cost, but also there's a greater cost if you don't work with me.
Right.
And we talked about that with the go up market, right? The fear, leaning into that fear a little bit. And you can do the same thing with the narrow market. You can say, you know, we've been doing this for 47 years. We have the experience. Don't go with that other guy.
Yeah.
You like literally that could be your slogan. Don't go with that other guy. Like imagine.
Well, the idea would be like we mentioned, like old electrical or plaster. If you work with somebody who doesn't understand that at the level that we understand it, like you're going to experience potentially project delays. They might make a mistake that you don't discover for years because they just don't understand what they're working with at the same level. You know, we've seen everything you can see when it comes to these types of projects. So we have that knowledge base because we specialize in this. And so the thing, you're right, in this example, like up market is very similar, but you can go narrow and down market.
Yeah.
You could
Totally.
You could do, you know, Robert's reasonable kitchen remodels.
Yeah.
Like he could
narrow
you know,
it.
I don't want to do anything but kitchens from here on out.
Right.
And you could just be the reasonable kitchen remodeler, and that'd be narrow, and that there would be riches in that niche.
Yeah.
Because he could he would be able to maximize his processes and be super efficient at just doing that one thing over and over again. He would build up a huge portfolio of awesome remodels, and he would just be the guy.
Yeah. Could you go narrow? I know this is interesting here, but I'm starting to think narrower market is more of a lens to see the other four through.
Could be
Like almost like,
I think broader and narrower are probably
but like what if, okay.
separate from the other three in some way. Or I mean, I really think up and down are a pair, broad and narrow are a pair, and then adjacent is almost like a strategy. It's like a strategy for niching.
Because even if you went broad and you sold like, I don't know, shirts, I don't know, you could sell shirts with a I mean, like Fear of God or like brands, those brands like Essentials or like Supreme t-shirts or whatever, right? These are like brands that are like are sought after. They just essentially sell shirts with that one logo on it, and that's it. So that's pretty broad because they're selling like different types of apparel, but they have the same narrow logo. Like it's the same mark on everything.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's any like there's examples there. I'm like kind of processing this out loud. I'm gonna go and find examples of like something that's just to break this whole system of a narrow thing that can like also be broad. I know that's crazy, but
you can open a remodeling company that is like a pop-up with people lined up around the corner to get your remodeling service. I think Supreme and
those are bad examples.
No, it's not a bad example. It's just very different than like scaling a local service company.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we're talking about here specifically is like starting something and scaling something. So
and my knowledge of Supreme starts and ends with things that I've seen in Casey Neistat videos.
Okay.
It's very
one of his vlogs.
Yeah. And
yeah, no, I love it, man.
It's probably 5 years old at this point.
Narrower.
Yeah. So when you go to a narrower market, these are the areas that you can live in. You can live in that philosophical, from a messaging standpoint. Philosophical. We talked about philosophical with the adjacent market and kind of like, hey, why would, you've got this problem of you don't have anybody you trust, but you already trust me for this other thing.
Yeah.
In the same way, the philosophical here is like, I wish somebody specialized in my exact thing. Like I deserve to have the perfect home, like the perfect remodel. And it's like, well, hey, here I am. I actually specialize in your exact home. I solve your philosophical dilemma. And obviously like failure, you brought that up. This idea of don't go with the other guy because that could cost you. And then success, like painting a vision of success is always important, but it definitely applies to these narrower things. If you choose somebody who's specialized in your type of remodel, you will find success.
Yeah. So those are the 5: up, down, adjacent, broader, and narrow.
Yeah.
I love them.
We did a whole episode on messaging where we talked specifically, actually that might have just been me, that was a solo episode where I talked specifically about kind of these words were thrown around like philosophical problems and aspirational identity and fear of failure. All of that was covered in that episode, so you should check it out. It's called how to story brand your business. Actually, Devin, fact check me on that. I want to make sure I have the right title.
Something, but more importantly, what we want you to do is just go to our YouTube channel and watch every single thing.
Actually, that's a good idea. Just watch all the episodes.
Just watch every single thing we've done, because that gives us views and we value
your brand message for your local company.
Okay.
And that was released on June 6th, if that helps you find it.
Man, from business to brand. Make the leap, y'all. Make the leap.
I said it at the top. I want to say it again. I'm just really thankful and grateful for the people listening to this episode or to these episodes. And I would love to hear other people's examples of scaling businesses and kind of the thought that they went through in doing that. Or maybe you're pre-scale and you want to go ahead and you have a question or something about what we talked about.
Or you think our takes are trash and you want to debate them. And you're like, those are trash
Bring
takes.
it on.
No, we want to hear from you, though.
Yeah, we do.
In any case, we really do.
Most importantly, share this episode with somebody that you think needs to hear it.
That's right.
So a business owner who you've heard talk about the growing pains of growing their company. And it's, I feel like most business owners are like, oh, things are great. Like it's not typical that people. So share it with any business owners.
Yeah.
But specifically, like if somebody popped into your mind while you're doing this or while you're listening to this, please share it with them. That would be so helpful. I mean, as of today, we have 100. This is Friday, July 7th. We have 120 YouTube subscribers. So that number keeps ticking up, which is fun. And you can comment right on YouTube with any questions. You can also go to BNPod, the letter B, the letter N, pod.com, and leave a voice message through Spotify, or you can email us at hello@bnpod.com. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Deploy the Nerds. If you share the episode, if you comment, we will definitely interact with you.
Yeah.
And if you're down with us, leave a review. So those are all the calls to action, people. I promise you, I have nothing else to ask from you.
We practice what we preach. We talk about CTA, call to actions and stuff,
Yep.
and that's
I'm kind and I do it at the end.
Exactly.
So-
Hey, but before we get into it, guys, would you subscribe to the channel? Drop a like down, smash that like button.
Yep.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm just
I
kidding.
probably will never be that guy. I don't want to say certainly, but probably will never be that guy.
Good.
Seems
Fair enough.
Seems like against my personality. All right, that's a wrap for today. Until next time, stay curious.
If you enjoyed this Brand Nerd podcast, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.